You step through the front door expecting darkness. No switches, no television glowing in the corner, no refrigerator humming behind you, yet the room is warm, a clock is ticking, bread is cooling beneath a white cloth, and 12 places can be set around the kitchen table before anyone has to fetch another chair. Then you notice the things that do not fit the picture in your head: a bright lamp with no cord, a polished china cabinet, a battery fan, a telephone, but not where any English family would keep one, and down in the cellar, enough food to carry a house through months when the garden is sleeping under snow. The strangest part of an Amish home is not what it lacks, it is how carefully every useful thing has been allowed in, placed, and made to answer to the family instead of asking the family to answer to it. Now, I want you to sit with this. There is no single Amish house. There never was. Our churches are joined by faith, but each local church keeps an ordnung, a lived order that guides what may enter the home and how it may be used. One settlement may permit a battery light that another considers too worldly. One family may have indoor plumbing, while another carries water from a hand pump. Some kitchens use propane refrigeration. Some use ice. Some depend on a cool cellar and the habits of the season. So I will not tell you that every Amish home looks like mine. Any man who says that has not traveled very far. I will show you the bones that many of our homes share, and I will tell you why they were shaped that way. My name is Amos. I am Amish, and my family has kept house on the same patch of Ohio ground for 4 generations. My grandfather used to say that a home ought to do 3 things well. It ought to shelter the old, train the young, and make enough room for a neighbor at the table. He did not say it ought to impress a stranger. By the time we have walked from the porch to the washroom, through the kitchen and the sitting room, up the narrow stairs and down into the cellar, you will have seen 15 things most outsiders never expect. More important, you will understand the quiet rule beneath all 15. Plain does not mean empty, and simple does not mean careless. We begin before we enter. The porch is not decoration added to make the farmhouse look friendly. It is another room, only the walls are made of weather. In summer, beans are snapped there, peas are shelled there, harness is mended there, and children leave a row of dusty shoes beneath the bench. When the kitchen holds the heat of canning day, the porch becomes the cool place to work. When a neighbor stops his buggy at the lane, it becomes the visiting room. Look close and you may see a wooden glider polished by years of hands, a galvanized washtub turned upside down to dry, baskets waiting for apples, or a boot scraper fixed near the step. Nothing is staged. A good porch tells you what the family did yesterday and what they mean to do tomorrow. That is the first surprise. The outside of the home is already working. Open the door, and the second thing greets you underfoot, the mudroom, or what some families simply call the back entry. In an English house, it may be a narrow passage. In a farmhouse, it is a border crossing between soil and supper. There are hooks low enough for children, hooks high enough for broad-brimmed hats, a place for bonnets, a line of coats, milk pails, egg baskets, barn boots, and perhaps a wooden box where gloves go to dry. The order is not for appearance. At 4:30 on a winter morning, nobody has time to hunt for a missing mitten while cows wait in the dark. My mother could tell which child had come in by the way the boots stood. Samuel kicked his off sideways. Ruth placed hers heel to the wall. Mine were usually full of something that did not belong on her clean floor. You may also find the telephone here, though often you will find it farther away, in a small booth by the lane or shared between several families. The point is not that a telephone is wicked. The point is distance. If it sits beside your chair, every ring can command the room. If you must put on your boots and walk out to answer it, you use it with purpose. That is a distinction outsiders often miss. We do not spend our days asking whether a machine is old or new. We ask what it will do to the household once it is invited to stay. From the entry, you come into the true center of the home, and the third surprise is its size. Not the size of the kitchen itself, but the length of the table. A family table may seat 8, 10, 12, or more. It holds breakfast before dawn, loaves after baking, school papers in the afternoon, mending in the evening, and visitors on Sunday. It may be covered with oilcloth, because oilcloth does not complain about spilled soup, hot jars, flour, or a child learning to pour milk. The table is not merely where the family eats. It is where the family keeps becoming a family. My grandfather sat at one end, not because he needed a throne, but because that chair gave him the wall at his back and a view of the door. Grandmother sat nearest the stove. The youngest children occupied the places where an elbow could reach them quickly. When company came, the table opened, boards were added, and benches appeared as though the house had been waiting all week to stretch. Some Amish churches meet in purpose-built rooms, but many still worship in homes and barns, moving from one family to another. That is why a large open room, movable tables, and benches matter. A sitting room may look spare on Saturday and hold a congregation on Sunday morning. Furniture is chosen with that possibility in mind. The fourth thing you notice is the cookstove. In many houses, it is the hardest working object under the roof. Depending on the community, it may burn wood, coal, kerosene, or propane. It cooks breakfast, heats wash water, dries wet mittens, warms the room, and in cold weather may carry much of the house on its iron back. A modern oven performs one task and then goes quiet. A farm stove is expected to do 5 jobs before noon. There is a rhythm to living beside one. You learn the sound of a good draft. You know which split of wood gives quick heat and which holds a bed of coals. You slide the kettle toward the hotter plate when you need water sooner and away when you do not. The stove teaches attention because it does not hide its fire behind a button. But do not make the mistake of turning this into a fairy tale. A wood or kerosene stove brings ash, labor, heat, and risk. Chimneys must be kept clean. Fuel must be stored properly. Children must learn what may not be touched. Old ways survive because people respect their dangers, not because they pretend those dangers are charming. The fifth surprise hangs above the table. Strong light with no public power line. Most old-order Amish groups do not connect their homes to the electrical grid, but that does not mean every family sits in darkness after sunset. You may see kerosene lamps, pressurized gas lights, propane fixtures, rechargeable battery lamps, or LED bulbs powered by a battery system. In some communities, solar panels charge batteries for permitted uses. Elsewhere, even that would be considered too far. The important line is not always electricity versus no electricity. A battery is local. It can be limited, carried, and switched off. The public grid ties a house continuously to the wider world and to every convenience that can follow the wire through the wall. The lamp itself is only part of the decision. When I was a boy, the evening light had a boundary. Beyond the lamp, the corners softened. You brought the mending closer. You leaned toward the book. When the fuel was low, you finished the sentence and went to bed. Light was useful, but it did not pretend that midnight was noon. Today, some battery lights are bright enough to make our old lamps look like fireflies. The tools change. The argument remains the same. Does this help the family do its work, or does it quietly rearrange the family around itself? Now look for the sixth thing, and you may not recognize it at first because it can resemble an ordinary refrigerator. Some Amish homes use propane refrigerators or freezers. Some have compressed air or hydraulic arrangements permitted by their church. Some rely on an ice house, spring house, or insulated icebox. Others use a cool cellar, preserve more food, and plan meals around what the season provides. The method changes from settlement to settlement. This is why the claim that Amish people use no modern equipment is foolish. The question is not whether refrigeration is convenient. Of course it is. The question is what source of power and what degree of dependence the church accepts. My grandmother kept milk in the coolest part of the cellar when weather allowed, and she planned as carefully as a banker. Fresh things were eaten first. Butter was salted. Meat was smoked, canned, or cooked promptly. Nothing was shoved behind 3 other packages and forgotten until it became a green surprise. A smaller cold space demands a better memory. That is not magic. It is management. The 7th surprise is the pantry. Because a proper Amish pantry is not a shelf of decorative jars. It is a record of the year. Strawberries arrive first in their red rows, then cherries, beans, pickles, peaches, tomato juice, applesauce, relish, meat, where safe and tested pressure canning methods are used. The colors move across the shelves like a calendar you can eat. You may find bulk flour, sugar, oats, rice, salt, and spices in sturdy containers, not because every family is preparing for the end of the world, but because stores may be far away and large households use food quickly. Buying in quantity saves trips, and preserving the harvest prevents July from being wasted simply because January has not arrived yet. Here I must speak plainly. A beautiful jar can still be dangerous. Safe canning times, proper pressure for low-acid foods, sound seals, clean equipment, and current food safety guidance matter. Botulism does not care how old a recipe is. Wisdom is not doing something carelessly because a grandmother once did it. Wisdom is keeping what was sound and correcting what was not. The pantry teaches a harder lesson than thrift. It teaches that abundance is a responsibility. If 20 pounds of tomatoes ripen together, you either act or you lose them. Beside the pantry, you may hear the 8th surprise ticking. Clocks are often among the most noticeable objects in a plain home. Mantel clocks, wall clocks, wind-up alarm clocks, sometimes several in one house. This confuses people who imagine that simple living means nobody cares what time it is. A dairy cow disagrees. Milking has a time. School has a time. Meals, chores, market wagons, visits, and church all have times. Without a phone in every pocket, the clock becomes more important, not less. Some families own beautiful clocks, handed down or received as wedding gifts. Plainness does not forbid craftsmanship. Grandfather wound hours every Saturday night. He listened after the first turn of the key and said a house should have one dependable tick. If a clock gained 5 minutes, he noticed before breakfast. That sound is part of the room. Stove settling, clock ticking, chair rocking, none of them demand your eyes. The 9th thing is what hangs on the walls and what does not. You should be careful here. Rules about photographs and decoration vary. Many Amish avoid posed personal portraits and the display of faces out of concern for pride and graven images. Yet a home is rarely a blank white box. You may see calendars from local businesses, framed verses, scenic prints, decorative plates, quilts, wall clocks, or children's schoolwork. Curtains soften the windows. China may be displayed in a glass front cabinet. A colorful rug may lie beneath a plain rocking chair. The goal is not ugliness, it is modesty. My mother kept one blue serving bowl that came from her mother. It was finer than anything we used on an ordinary Tuesday. When guests came, that bowl carried potatoes to the table. Beauty was permitted to work for its keep. This matters because outsiders often confuse plainness with deprivation. A carefully pieced quilt can hold more color than a painted wall, but its color comes joined to patience, usefulness, and the hands of people you know. The 10th surprise is the sitting room, because of the object missing from its center. There is no television arranging every chair around itself. Instead, you may find hickory rockers, a couch in more progressive homes, straight-back chairs, a sewing basket, hymnals, books, and toys that do not require charging. The chairs can face one another. That sounds like a small thing until you notice how many modern rooms face a black rectangle even when it is turned off. Amish restrictions on television, radio, and personal computers are not based on the belief that every wire contains evil. Mass media carries values, desires, and arguments chosen by people far outside the community. Bring the screen into the sitting room and, before long, strangers decide what the children fear, want, and imitate. That does not make every conversation in an Amish home profound. People grow tired. Children quarrel. Men tell the same story twice. A screenless room is not heaven. It simply leaves human beings with fewer places to hide from one another. On winter evenings, hands remain busy. Harness may be repaired. Socks are darned. Quilting is done. A child reads aloud. Someone nods off in the warmest chair and denies it when the clock strikes. The 11th thing waits near a window or in a room of its own, work built into the house. In many English homes, work leaves in the morning and returns after supper. In an Amish home, production often lives close by. A sewing machine may be powered by treadle, battery, or a permitted pneumatic system. A desk may hold farm accounts. A basement room may be set aside for canning. A side room may contain quilting frames. Outside, a cabinet shop, harness shop, bakery, or repair business may stand a few steps from the kitchen door. The house is not only a place to consume what the world sells, it is a base from which useful things go out. That changes the shape of family life. Children see where money comes from. They learn that a chair begins as boards, that bread begins before sunrise, that a torn coat can return to service, and that a customer's trust is easier to lose than to earn. It also creates clutter and strain if order is neglected. Sawdust walks in on boots. Fabric takes over a table. Business callers arrive during supper. The old people did not solve the work-life balance. They simply made the boundary visible. Climb the stairs, and the 12th surprise is how ordinary the bedrooms can feel. There are beds, dressers, quilts, cribs, pegs, and the private disorder children produce in every culture. A parent's room may include a cradle or crib because babies remain close. Children may share rooms. In large families, the number of beds can surprise an outsider more than any missing appliance. Bedrooms are generally not built as entertainment suites. They are for sleeping, dressing, nursing a baby, and keeping a few personal things. You may find hunting equipment in a boy's room, sewing supplies in a girl's room, a battery fan in summer, or colors that would surprise anyone expecting everything to be black and white. But again, communities differ. A Pennsylvania home, an Indiana home, and a very plain Swiss Amish home may look as different from one another as 3 English farmhouses. The deepest mistake is to tour one house and call it the Amish house. One home tells you about one family under one local Ordnung at one moment in time. The 13th surprise is water. Turn a faucet in one Amish kitchen, and water may flow normally. In another, a hand pump stands over the sink. In a plainer settlement, water may be carried, and the house may have no conventional indoor bathroom. Some use outhouses. Others have full bathrooms, hot water systems, and plumbing, while still remaining off the public electrical grid. People like simple labels: no electricity, no plumbing, no technology. Real life is untidier. If water must be pumped or heated, you feel its weight. Wash day is not a button pressed between other errands. Water is drawn, heated, used in order, and carried away. That labor can encourage thrift, but I will not romanticize it. It is heavy work. A machine that saves a woman's back deserves honest consideration, and many Amish communities have found permitted ways to use washers powered by gasoline engines, compressed air, or other systems. The principle is not suffering for its own sake. The principle is deciding together which conveniences strengthen the household and which make it dependent or divided. The 14th thing is the washroom, and it may be the most revealing room in the house. Here you may see a wringer washer, wash tubs, a long sink, drying racks, cleaning brushes, canning equipment, shelves of boots, and a stove or burner for heating water. It is not polished for visitors. It is where dirt is defeated in large quantities. Monday wash has a sound: water sloshing, gears turning, fabric passing through the wringer, clothespins rattling in an apron pocket. On a clear day, the line outside fills with dark trousers, plain dresses, shirts, sheets, and small clothes lifting in the same wind. Efficiency in such a room comes from sequence. Light things before dark, clean water before dirty jobs. Tools return to the same hook. The system is not quaint. It is what keeps a household from drowning in its own labor. My mother said a clean house is not one where nobody makes a mess. It is one where everybody knows how the mess gets put right. And now we come to the 15th surprise, which is that the home does not end at the back wall. An Amish farmstead is a small arrangement of connected worlds: house, cellar, barn, buggy shed, workshop, garden, chicken house, woodshed, clothesline, and sometimes a smaller home for grandparents. That last place is often called a doddy house, a grandfather house. It allows older parents to step away from the heaviest work without being pushed out of family life. The barn provides food and income. The workshop turns skill into wages. The garden feeds the pantry. The woodshed feeds the stove. The cellar carries summer into winter. The buggy shed protects transportation. Each building answers another. This is why judging the house by the number of appliances inside it misses half the story. Many functions that modern life compresses into electric machines are spread across rooms, buildings, seasons, and people. A dryer is replaced by a line, sun, wind, and time. Central heat may be replaced by fuel, stove, smaller heated spaces, quilts, and work. Entertainment may be replaced by visiting, reading, singing, games, and the ordinary theater of a large family trying to get through supper. None of those replacements is free. They ask for land, labor, skill, cooperation, and time. Simplicity always sends a bill. It simply charges in a different currency. There is another pattern running through every room, one that does not show well in a photograph. Space is expected to change its duty. On an ordinary Thursday, the largest room may hold a table, children's chairs, a sewing basket, and the remains of supper. Before church, those things move. Floors are swept. Partitions may be opened. Benches arrive on a wagon made for that purpose. Coats and hats need places. Food is prepared for many more mouths than the household usually feeds. A room that belonged to one family becomes a room for the church. After the final hymn and the shared meal, it changes back. That habit reaches beyond worship. When a baby is born, a bedroom becomes part nursery. When grandparents need care, the smaller house or a downstairs room changes purpose. When peaches ripen, the washroom becomes a cannery. When a storm threatens, the porch fills with tools and baskets brought under cover. When somebody dies, neighbors arrive, tables lengthen, food appears, and the same house makes room for grief. Modern houses are often sold to us as collections of specialized spaces: a room for eating, a room for watching, a room for guests who may come twice a year, a room large enough to impress people standing in the doorway. The old farmhouse cannot afford that kind of pride. Square feet must earn their keep. This is also why movable furniture matters: a rocker light enough to shift, a table with leaves, benches that stack, hooks instead of bulky cabinets, and work surfaces that can be cleared, all allow the house to breathe in and out with the needs of the day. My grandmother could turn the kitchen from breakfast room to bakery before the clock finished striking 7. By afternoon, bread racks stood where children had eaten. Before supper, the racks moved and the places returned. The room did not complain that baking was outside its intended purpose. You may call that efficient design. She would have called it putting things where they belong. And there is a human lesson inside it. When rooms are allowed to change, people are allowed to be needed. The child who carries benches is not merely in the way. The grandfather who can no longer manage the barn may sort apples, mend a handle, or watch the youngest. Work is divided by strength, but belonging is not. An Amish home can look crowded to an outsider because so much life is visible. Laundry announces itself. Food arrives by the bushel. Boots do not disappear into a machine. Work leaves shavings. Children leave evidence. Old people remain close enough to hear. The answer is not a house where nothing happens. It is a house with rhythms strong enough to put things right after something has happened. I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. So remember this: an Amish home is not proof that the past was perfect, and it is not a museum piece frozen in the year 1850. It changes. Churches discuss batteries, solar power, phones, machinery, safety, and work. Families buy older English houses that already contain wiring. Some build with future resale in mind. Some adopt a tool after years of caution. Others draw the line earlier. The wisdom is not in copying every object you have seen today. You do not need to move your telephone to a shed. You do not need to throw away your refrigerator or heat bathwater on a stove. If you copied the surface and missed the reason, you would only be playing dress-up with another man's life. The useful question is quieter. What is the center of your home? What direction do the chairs face? Which machine is a servant, and which one has become a small master? Do your children know where food comes from, where money comes from, and how a torn thing is repaired? Can an old parent remain near the life of the family? Is there room at the table for one person you did not expect? Walk back through the house with me. The porch is a room made of weather. The mudroom guards the line between field and table. The long table expands for family, work, worship, and company. The stove gives heat more than one job. The lamps show that power can be accepted without surrendering every boundary. The cold space teaches planning. The pantry stores seasons instead of fantasies. The clocks keep duty. The walls allow beauty without turning the self into an idol. The sitting room lets chairs face people. The workroom reminds children that useful things are made. The bedrooms serve rest rather than escape. The water system reveals the true weight of convenience. The washroom turns order into relief. And beyond the walls, the barn, garden, shop, cellar, and grandparents' house make one living whole. Plain does not mean empty, simple does not mean easy, and old does not mean thoughtless. Tell me where you live and what room has become the true heart of your home. Is it still the kitchen table, or has another object quietly taken its place? Then tell me one thing your parents or grandparents arranged differently in their house, something that made daily life steadier even if the modern world forgot it. I read every comment, because one family's ordinary habit may be another family's missing piece. Next time, I am going to take you beyond the kitchen and open the one door visitors almost never see, the Amish cellar in late autumn, when the shelves are full, the air is cold, and every jar has a story about the summer that put it there. Until then, keep it simple, keep it honest, and keep it homemade. And remember, the people who built this country with their own two hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.